the idea to keep the questions just came up during the last session because I really enjoyed listening to your questions, which are really important because sometimes, my background is also neuroscience, and sometimes you just get a bit blindfold and you don't really understand what the real needs are and where we need to educate. And so I thought that was really, really valuable for us. So, first, yeah. Let's start with Ho. I always wanted to be a garbage collector when I was young because I thought it was really cool. Growing up in Germany, I thought it was a cool thing, like these orange jackets are always out, big trucks. So is there actually a natural way of boosting your defense mechanism, your autophagy, your garbage collectors? Is there any food or anything I can do?
Right. So we have tested. So we have tested it for early kind of garbage clearance. What we call creating these garbage trucks, something called trehalose, which is a sugar. But you have to take it in very high amounts. And as I explained in terms of some of the biology in the cell, kind of creating more garbage trucks isn't necessarily going to benefit later on in the disease stage. So that actually might be harmful depending on how far the disease has progressed. So while we can show it in cells and animals, it's probably not recommended for patients to use a natural product like that.
Right, okay.
Yeah. Sorry? Well, I'm finished the answer, so.
So, and then actually I have another question. So in your lab, are you now actually really trying to discover some sort of pill you take once a day and that could sort of, for a long run, kind of increase, and then in parallel to whatever therapy is on top of that, may actually help to remove existing misfolded tau, the garbage?
Right. So the ultimate goal really is to kind of create that drug that an individual can take to help remove garbage, be it tau or other proteins that are involved in neurodegenerative diseases. Some of the wicked compounds that I discussed are some of the early stages in what we call drug discovery for that pill, hopefully in the future.
Thank you. Some questions for Dr. Schellenberg. So in general, could you just maybe, because there are a couple of questions on that, could you just comment again on the risk of passing it on to the next generation? So if I'm diagnosed with PSP, is it likely that my children will have it?
So there are mutations that you have a 50% chance of passing it on. In tau, but those are extraordinarily rare. It's highly unlikely unless you have a family history, a very dense family history of PSP or frontal temporal dementia. You probably don't have one of those mutations. So I can't give you, they're so rare, I can't give you a percent how often they occur. And the H1H2, as I said, you probably will pass it on to your kids, but they had such a low starting risk that even though it goes up sixfold, they're still at low risk for tau. So this does not get passed on generation to generation. That's why Dr. Golby's clustering in villages is extremely interesting, because there's something that pushes you. You have probably have a genetic load that puts you at higher risk, and then something else happens, and that might be metals or stuff we don't know about.
Yeah. And so there are also a couple of questions here for you, Jerry. You mentioned those 2,000 genomes you're going to analyze. Can people still participate? And who are those 2,000? Are they alive? What's the what's the deal? Is it a kind of a clinical trial? How can they participate? Is there?
Well, most of those people, the 2,000, are deceased. Those are autopsy-proven cases. PSP is a pretty solid diagnosis, so when we follow up, we will be using clinical cases, but kind of when we spend more money, we want to absolutely make sure the person has PSP, so most of those are autopsied. But we are always collecting additional volunteers for genetic studies because we can extend what we find with the sequencing with other technologies that are less expensive.
That's a comment from me now. So the core mission of the Brain Support Network and one of our programs is actually to support brain donations. And that really feeds into it. And I think also a common theme you see this morning is like how we all work together. There are I mean, you're focused on your research, but you cannot live without other branches and people in this whole research world, I should say, because without brain donations, less material for the geneticist to analyze. And I have a question for Dr. Clark. So when you develop those, actually that's one of the cards here, when you develop these animal models, so in the long run you would like to test drugs, right? Have you already tested drugs in this or not?
Yes, the ultimate goal is to test drugs, and of course we would love to be able to find drugs that are off the shelf already approved by FDA. We've done some tentative work with the animal model, some obvious things because those neurons that we're removing actually produce this chemical called acetylcholine. Acetylcholine activates nicotinic receptors, and so we've tried nicotinic replacement therapy in our animals and we see absolutely no effect. But we are in the process of selecting other drug candidates, but I have no news on that front yet.
All right. And I just have to put my advocacy hat on here right now as member of staff of CurePSP and also comment on this genetics project. I get quite a few phone calls of people who are desperate and want to be tested. What I can only recommend is that you contact experts and let you guide you or call us, and there is actually an association of the National Genetic Counseling. We strongly recommend not to go to any for-profit providers because you will receive a letter, and in this letter you get a long list of potential mutations that are associated with other diseases, and that's it. I would freak out. Right? And if I would read some of those, because some of these mutations mean a bit more to me than maybe to you, but I still would pick up the phone and say, Jerry, help me, right? So, and then if that's not happening, right, there's no reason to just kind of sell all your stuff and go gamble in Las Vegas, right? So it's important, and it's actually really irresponsible. It's absolutely irresponsible of for-profit companies to offer genetic sequencing without genetic counseling. And I don't care about online genetic counseling. It needs to be face-to-face and direct questions. And the big centers, I know that Columbia University does it. I'm sure that in Buffalo there's also a big gene center. They all offer it, and if you go to the website of the Genetic Counselors Association, I think it's called, they provide a finder where you can type in your zip code and get an analysis. But as we heard from Dr. Schellenberg, it's not so important anyway to get tested for you privately. For research, it's really important and will give us a lot of information. Well, let me just scan through. We have done, most of them are actually quite the same. Let's see if I have another question. Beg your pardon? I didn't hear it.
Nothing wrong with ending early.
Ending early, all right. But I have another question for Dr. Clark, and is also, or I may more. It's Exactly. It's actually more like a comment also, because, you know, you might wonder, Dr. Clark's work, where is that, does it help you right now? Well, maybe not directly, and you can actually directly, as in we have a drug tomorrow, and you can certainly comment on that. But it's really important that we have also this preclinical work, because if you go back in time and look at the last 4 decades, let's say, about neurodegeneration clinical trials, it's quite of a sad result so far, right? And we need better animal models. And my background is actually, I'm a behavioral neurobiologist, so I really wholeheartedly support also what seems to be basic neuroscience is really important for the future, and we need to invest in that as well. So if you just want to say a few words.
My only comment is you've seen a lot of data in cells, in other model systems, and I just want to impart on you my feeling of the importance of the animal research. Our brains are very complicated organs, and without using the whole organ system, these questions that we were trying to unravel, we will not be able to do it in a dish. And so, personally, after I finished my PhD, I wanted to leave animal research behind and not ever do it again. But as our understanding of the brain evolves and grows, it's really important to go back to it. So I just want to emphasize my wholehearted, deep appreciation for the animals that we use, and that it's very valuable that we support animal research for this complicated organ that we're trying to fix.
Well, thank you. That's actually exactly how also I felt, using animal models to work in the lab and to find a cure. So first of all, I would like to thank all speakers. We had to cut this a little bit short. I'm sorry. It was an absolute pleasure to be here today to talk to you. I hope you could learn a little bit and take some stuff home with you. Maybe if it's even more questions, we keep them. I think it's really valuable what you were asking. I would like to go through this. We have a little booth in the back. This is CurePSP. There are also some of my business cards are there. I unfortunately have to leave because CurePSP has its board meeting right now. But my colleague Sabrina in the back, she can help you. And we will continue, this afternoon to work on how we can actually make this foundation better and serve you, and continue the beautiful collaboration with Robin Riddle. Also, on those business cards, there is my telephone number and my email, and as I was introduced as a translator, I'm happy to continue translating to you. If you have questions, call anytime. That's what I'm here for, and I'm really looking forward to talking to you. Thank you.